So it's sitting there and I got enough now that
Okay,
after this.
we will call this February 8th, 2022 Management Services Special Meeting to order. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Pro, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, are there any public comments? Seeing none, we'll open discussion on animal control building. Okay. Where do we want to start?
Well, I bought a quick little check sheet from Jill's information. I took all of Jill's information and essentially extended the square footages. And there's a couple of things that I thought should be looked at that were missing in there, like circulation. I think Jill had everything on there correctly.
Thank you.
I
I did a
think
lot of
it's a-
research.
I think it's the one that you had the other day, but
Yeah.
I may have, I'm missing a vestibule in this sheet.
I had the heck of it.
Thank you.
Fingers aren't working.
Thank you, Larry.
What I would like to do, and also coupled with the tail end of the conversation from the last meeting, you had suggested I touch base with Bill, and we've subsequently drawn a quick little sketch for what Bill needs. And how about if Bill presents what he's talking about so that you've kind of got that in the back of your mind when we get into this? Does that work out okay for you?
Alright. Well, when I first got started on this, I have talked to Clary, because I thought, I didn't know if we're looking at Morton building, or Clary building, whatever, so I do have a kind of a rough estimate from Clary, but there's some questions I don't know exactly. Basically, for you guys that maybe don't know how this cooler came about, when Phyllis Jameson was coroner, we bought a two-man cooler, and it stayed out at the county highway department. County highway department, they needed the space, so then we had an agreement to take the cooler to the hospital and put it in the basement. That cooler is still there today. Now, the problem is, it's in the basement. The freight elevator that we took it down is no longer in service. In fact, they've closed it in. So now it is stuck in the basement at the hospital. So then we had issues coming up with COVID as far as, well, the hospital, of course, you know, we could take bodies in, but, you know, they couldn't be found in a house for 3 or 4 days or anything like that, going up and down the hallway. So then we started using Roy Byers' cooler over at Byers Funeral Home. He was good enough to let us do that. Then the Knaps bought the Byers Funeral Home out, and then they become a little bit more concerned about what happens if their building burns down. We have a body in the cooler from the county. Do they get sued? Do we have, so now it's a liability issue. So then I've heard about this, and it's a problem. It's a problem with us because we really need to take care of the issue, but it's always been a big expense to get this done. And what we're looking at is, you know, a lot of people don't know exactly what we do through the coroner's office, but like we had an accident, you know, out on the interstate. They were from Chicago, and family immediately wants to come down. They want to make sure it's them. They want to view and stuff. We need to have a facility that can kind of accommodate that, and that's what we're trying to do here. And Larry, I've talked to Larry. Basically, what we'd like to do, and I don't know, Larry, is this the only one that you have?
You know what, I think I do have one.
Basically, what it is, it's basically a 30 by 36 is have a roll-up door in the middle where we can back in out of the weather. It's got it'll have a 10 by 10 walk-in cooler, and has to have a bathroom because we'll have, sometimes we have the Illinois State Police in there taking pictures, families coming in, so it's gotta be kind of to make notification. So we've made just a little sketch. Now, one thing that is in here that I don't want at this time, we have a 2-body freezer that we have, and the reason we do that is for our decomp cases. And I don't want to go to that expense because we can use Kankakee still. But this is something that the next corner down the road could possibly add if he wanted to. So that freezer that you might see in there is an addition down the road.
In terms of equipment,
Of
you still
equipment.
want to keep the space.
I want to keep the space, but yeah, because we need the space. But that's something. Kankakee just sold their 2-man freezer because they're getting a new one. And we could have picked that up for next to nothing, but it's already spoken for. And so that's something that, we can look at down the road. But anyway, I'm not with that.
What, is the coolers in the hospital basement, are they still operational or?
Well, here's that 2-unit, it's a 2-tier unit. It is. In fact, they called me and the compressor went out. Our agreement that Ellen Sproul made with the hospital years ago is they maintain it, they work on it, we buy the parts. So the compressor just went out, and we went ahead, I told them, go ahead, we need it, so get it fixed. So they did, they purchased a new compressor, but what I'm looking at is, and this will be down the road, if this is done, if we get to do this, maybe give that compressor to the hospital and get away from that agreement with them, and because we can't get it out. I mean, we're gonna have to take it apart. I don't know, is that us going in there? Is it their maintenance guys gonna take it apart? So I'm gonna see if we just can't say, hey, how about you guys take that cooler? Like I said, by then it's 35, 38 years old, and it's not worth nothing. What they use it for is if they have a death in the emergency room, people maybe want to do tissue donation or something like that, then they use it for refrigeration until Gift of Hope can come down and pick up the person that is going to donate. So that way we can maybe, I thought, if we can just let them take over, and then if something goes wrong with it, they don't want to fix it, they shut it down and we're out of it.
Both the funeral homes in town, they have coolers too, right?
Just the one, Fire does, Naps does not, Naps don't, yeah. So, but yeah, Byers, but now since Naps bought Byers, we do have it.
And specifically, at least what I remember from your previous conversation, is the recent problems that he's run into with decomp, because as indelicate as it is to talk about, if you're on judicial, you'll see the bills come through where Bill has, it's not infrequently that we have to pay a morgue fee in Kankakee to, especially if we need a pathologist to do an autopsy.
And see here, and this, I told this to the committee last time, you think you're prepared for everything. Well, when we had that gentleman that was found in that tanker, and I couldn't take him into the funeral home, I couldn't take him into, so luckily the autopsy was down in Champaign, and Dwayne down there said he would store him for us until we got the autopsy done, so that was a huge help, for us. And but I think that night we got called to the tanker about 8:30 in the morning. We left the scene about 6 p.m. that night. We were coming across the county. We had a double fatal there at the intersection. Lady was burnt. I mean, it was about about midnight before we got done with that one.
Yeah.
And then we had to get this body down to, down to Champaign. So, I mean, it was a long day but we had nowhere else we could store it, But, those days are, and this, I would like it where we don't use the cooler every day. So, I'd like to, if we need it, if we don't need it, we could turn it off, just go in there and flip a breaker. So it's not like the county's just sitting there watching this, meter spin. But it would need, Larry helped me a little bit on this. We don't really need a furnace in there. We just, where there's I don't know what you call that, Larry, that can be mounted to the wall.
Right.
Heat
Yeah.
pump.
Yeah.
A little mini-
Yeah, it's something like that, and, that we can heat and cool it, just so if the Illinois State Police are in there taking pictures, getting DNA, whatever they're doing, it's warm in there for them, it's cool in there for them so they can work too, so.
Well, if we're gonna do this, would it be easier for you to have your whole office there or not?
I don't think so.
Okay.
What scares me about, I mean, because when you have an outside building like that, we're gonna try to keep it, as clean as we can, we're gonna have to go out there, but I mean, still, you're gonna have your bug issues, you're gonna have, spiders and all that, and I just don't think that, I don't think you want your office in there, especially if you've got a decomp case in there,
Okay.
cause it's not that's not the best.
Would you be keeping your vehicle in here then? Or-
No, I would still take the vehicle home with me. Now, here's what I do, on weekends that I'm off. My other deputy lives on the edge of town here in Watsika, both of them do. So what we do then is I park the van, at the funeral home out of the elements. So if they need to go, they don't have to worry about ice and all that kind of stuff. They'll let me park it in there. But the nice thing is, if it's a weekend and I'm off, yeah, we'll just back it in there, park it. The guys then have access to it. So they, both of them live right here in Watsika, so they'll have access to the van if they need it.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, when you back in, we put a floor drain in there because, if you back in, you get ice and.
I assume this is utility, mechanics, so what, if we're not gonna put a furnace in there, is that like a water heater
Yes.
or?
Yeah.
And you have to have a mop sink.
Oh, of
Code
course.
requires a mop sink, and
Sure.
you need storage for cleaning supplies
Sure.
and things like that.
Now, is there some place where you're gonna would need a table or anything like that?
I think what we're gonna do is, we're gonna have, there is
Oh.
he put a little work area in there, but,
I pictured that as being a wooden desk.
yeah, no, that was just, he just threw that in there, we're,
Just something to fill out forms and.
right, so we're just gonna, if you gotta sign a report or whatever with the state police and those kind of
A
things.
laptop.
We got a little countertop in there that we can do that.
But I meant like a stainless steel table for body handling or anything. You don't need that in there.
Well, I was gonna get, and some of the equipment, and this is what I was talking to Larry about, some of the equipment, I mean, I don't wanna come in here and say, I'm gonna need 275,000. What I'm gonna do is, we'll purchase the equipment as we see that we need. And, right now, we're roughly at 22,000 in our automation fund. And, so, when it comes to like collapsible tables, stuff like that, we're gonna, Kankakee just got rid of 2 of them, cause, so, I mean, it's just everything that and the only reason they're getting rid of them is because they got money to replace them.
So we are at 1,080 square feet for this. And we're at,
Little over 20.
2166.
Well, I'm missing a vestibule. It ends up being a little over
Well,
22.
You said that about a vestibule. I made a note. What's the difference between a vestibule and a lobby waiting room?
The lobby waiting room is a space on the interior for people to.
Oh, and so you're
Okay,
talking
sit
about
down.
like where you just walk in the door and you have a second set of doors.
Airlock in between.
Okay, all right. And then, so if we were to put these two buildings together, separate entrances and they, you know, you don't go back and forth,
Mhm.
then you felt you're way smarter than me, but we're gonna be sharing utility walls and electric.
Well, that's the biggest advantage for you, in my opinion. Just getting the utilities to this.
Plumbing walls and
Right.
things like that.
I
What's
think
your hesitation there? I hear you
Well,
going,
well,
oh.
my question is, if you're gonna have people coming to view the body, family members, are we going to be able to insulate it good enough so that while they're there viewing, they're not hearing dogs barking?
I think so.
Mhm.
I think so.
I mean, that would be
And,
I
you
know,
know,
a
well,
respect thing for the
yeah,
family.
and that's a good point. One thing that I would say is Will County, their morgue sits in their, highway department building. So the first time I went up there, I pulled in and I see graders and guys banging on things and, you know, then you walk into the morgue and you've got families in there, you know, so I mean, it's a good point, but,
Well, and I mean, as long as we can control the sound, I think if we put the building here, your entrance could be on that side, dog could be on that side, so that they're
Right.
not having to deal with the other.
Right, separate entrances, separate departments,
Yeah.
but
and I don't,
connected.
and I don't know if, you know, like, if, say I'm on the left end and the entrance to the dog kennel is in the middle, and they keep the dogs down towards the right end, of,
Yeah.
you know, the far end,
That'll
so at least we're at separate ends,
Space.
that would
Air.
help,
Air.
yeah.
I think part of the mission that Jill had in her original perspectives was to try and minimize that dog barking in the kennel.
Mhm.
That's tricky to do, but I think we can do it. So it would be minimized already. I think the only thing that you might have would be maybe some dogs outside or something, but then minimize that by fences and, you know, just to keep them, get each other excited.
Right.
Yeah, and those dogs aren't gonna, you know, they're gonna be outside at certain times doing their exercise and their business. So whenever you have somebody coming in or whatever, you can just shoot us a text and make sure the dogs aren't out there.
And, you know, and the thing is, you know, I don't have, let's put it this way, I don't have an issue with
Right.
what we're talking about here, so I think it'll work.
Yeah.
So, I think it'll be a good thing. So, anything that we can get is better than what we've got now. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And-
I think that both of these projects you're looking down the road
Mhm.
to prevent some other issues.
Are we, with Bill's portion of this project, are we talking about $190 a square foot plus utilities still?
I don't
Isn't
think
that-
Bill's will take quite that kind of a budget. I think his is a little bit less.
His is more of a shell.
Yeah, mine is more of a shell.
A
I know-
finished- a
I know
finished
I-
garage.
The walk-in cooler, and just let me talk about that too. Okay, so the walk-in cooler, what we're looking at is a 10 by 10. And you can put, when you walk in the door in the center, you can put racks on the left and racks on the right. What would be proposing is one set of 3 racks on the left.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was,
Okay.
oh, you're in this room, the
Yeah, I'm in the
cooler.
cooler, yeah.
3 on the left, okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
So you put a rack of 3 on the left, and then my opinion is, let's see if we need to add the rack to the right. So, I mean, if you put 3 and you still have room for 2 and 1 in the center and 1 on the right, that's 5. So 5 at one time. Have we ever had where we've had more than 5 deceased in one accident? Not that I can remember. So,
Well,
well,
if
if
we ever-
we ever have a plane go down, We're gonna be calling it, I mean, Kankakee wouldn't even be able to handle that,
Yeah.
so, but.
We're calling in the Calvary.
That's right, we're
Yeah,
gonna
you
get
get
the
a
refrigeration truck,
trailer,
yeah.
yeah.
We're gonna go to the next step.
So we're spending money in Kankakee right now, would we be saving money by putting this here, the money going to Kankakee?
Well, we would be, but I would venture to say the rate of payback would be sort of slow.
Slow, yeah, because the thing is, we would still have to do our autopsies in Kankakee, because we wouldn't get the pathologists to come down here. So we would still have to go to them.
Well, and we're not, to build an autopsy room would be very.
Oh,
expensive.
yeah. So no, we're not, it's once again, it's convenience factor for us to do business from the coroner's office and not have to drag our families up to Kankakee. Because that's, what'll happen is attorneys will subpoena Kankakee because we've done the autopsies there. So they think our records are up there. So then they forward the subpoena down to us and stuff. So, I mean, people get confused just because we do the autopsy up there. They think it's a Kankakee County case. And they'll call Kankakee and say, hey, we need the pictures, and they're like, you gotta call Iroquois. So, you know, but this way, it would just solve the problem as far as we don't have to, you know, if we have a accident, what I've been doing is I've been taking them to the Buyer Funeral Home. We'll let the families meet there at the funeral home. But once again, a coroner after me is not gonna have that luxury. So it'd be nice if we had a facility that, you know, and they don't expect everything to be perfect and, you know, I mean, if it's a nice building that's got steel panel on the inside and, you know, where it's just presentable, they
Clean,
understand.
clean.
Yeah, clean.
And that their loved ones are being handled with respect and, I just wanna reiterate what Bill just said, I don't want that to go unheard. In the event Bill Cheatham ceases to be our coroner, we no longer have the connection to the funeral homes that Bill provides. So I
Same-
just,
The same situation like with the dogs.
right,
It all depends on who the new coroner would be.
Right.
Right,
well,
right.
unless it was one of the NAPS or one of their
Yeah, but I mean, if
employees,
it's one of our employees or something like that, but I mean,
But
you
at
know,
that
there's-
point, they might also say, you know, we did that with Bill, we're done with that. We've got an
Like you said, the
employee
liability aspect.
situation and we're no longer, sorry, you're done.
right. And, I mean, because we had an accident on the interstate last month and, they were from Chicago and we had them in that cooler for 5 days because the funeral home up there wouldn't come down to pick up the bodies until they got paid. And they said, we're not taking responsibility until we get paid. Well, that, you know, and then I hear the naps on my side going, hey, we need you to, and it got to be an issue. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I can't do nothing.
Yeah,
you know.
where do we go with this poor soul?
There's the family for storage.
Well,
Well, there gets to be a point where the cooler doesn't work anymore.
yeah,
You know, that scenario doesn't work, and you have to go to the freezer, and nobody's got a freezer.
yeah.
I think that's correct, right?
Yeah, the freezers that we use is usually for like decomp cases, the really bad decomp cases, so it helps tremendously, but anyway, but that's something, you know, I feel that this isn't something we need to, you know, look at this point. I mean, what we've got here, if we got that, I would be ecstatic, so.
Access to that building, it's not your job to clean it. Will our cleaning people have ready access to it?
I feel, and I think every coroner would feel that it is our responsibility to clean it because of
Okay.
bloodborne pathogens, stuff like that. I mean, that would be something that I would want to control as far as,
Well, I mean, I can see the cooler, but somebody to go in and sweep the rest of it.
I still feel that would be,
Okay,
that would be us that would take care of that.
okay.
The interior of this would have to comply with the bloodborne pathogen policy, for the environment and everything in there. You can't have cracks and seams, and everything's gotta be filled and cleanable, and it goes on and on, so.
So is a metal wall good enough, or does it
Yes.
need to be a
We've been migrating to, some of the same things that they use in clean rooms and hospital.
I mean,
ICUs.
Kankakee's more facility, and where they do the autopsies is just drywall. So, I mean, and then their wash bay, where we do a lot of cleanup, is just metal, you know, just same metal that's on the outside of the building. So,
Okay, I'm just trying to get a visual, and I'm counting these blocks in the wall of what our space looks like, just because I'm curious for no other reason. Those are a little more than a foot.
These
So,
are 2 feet. 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28. This is about 30 feet wide.
so it'd be about this wide,
Mhm.
and it would be 36, which, so it's a little bit more than a square.
Yeah, from that T-bar right there, this space
Okay.
is about what you'd be talking about. So roughly,
We kind of figured the space of our office.
it's
We're
about
kind of looking at it.
30
Yeah.
by 36.
and, you know, once we get the 10x10 cooler in there and
Over there, leave space.
The vehicle is actually drawn to scale. It's 204 inches. I've made it just a little bit bigger in the event that somebody might have a larger vehicle
Mhm.
to drop somebody off
Oh,
or pick somebody
You know,
up.
we're probably looking
So-
at a 10-foot tall.
10-foot
Door.
door, yeah, probably a 10x10 door, you know.
I think I actually made it 12 feet, just anticipating a little bit larger vehicle
For
But
height
still.
or width?
width, but 10 foot high.
so,
I just don't wanna, I talked to Larry about the freezer issue, and I said, I don't think we need to go there now, maybe down the road. I see coroner's fees for $50 to cremate going to 100, they've already done it in Chicago. So I mean, I'm at around 22,000 and paying a guy out of that automation fund.
23.
Just 23, so I can see that automation fund being able to support updates, upkeep, stuff like that out there.
well, and there's no doubt that things are changing. I mean, that you see it every day. There are more and more cremations taking place.
Yeah. So I think if we started off where, let's see what, I think 5, if we had enough for 5. If we need more, we can always add another rack, but I don't see just spending money just to say we have it. Let's see what we need, but I think 5 is plenty.
Is that a freestanding cooler?
It sits right on the concrete, and it's a 10x10. The cooler itself with the racks, the lift and everything, cooler is right about 18,000. And I don't know how, you know, when I was talking to them, and same way with Clary, they said the price we give you can change upon notice, so I don't know how you lock in a price.
You
and,
can't right now.
No,
You know,
can't.
I mean, I don't know how you know,
I mean, heating equipment has gone up 44% in the last year.
well, that's what,
So we know what Bill wants, we know what Jill wants, we don't have a drawing. We're looking at if we did, so what's the next step? I mean, I wanna see this project move forward. I'm for Bill,
I'd
I'm
like to
for
go
the
through
dog.
that little checklist just to make sure that I'm not
Yeah.
misunderstanding
Do we
something.
have to have 2 washrooms per se? Could we just have one? I know they have like family washrooms or whatnot.
Go ahead.
The general rule of thumb in the code is 5 people.
Okay,
If you need to leave, I
No,
think
I
you
think-
got.
okay.
for washrooms?
So many
We
problems.
probably, no, there won't be,
5
more than 5 people in there at a time, because the county's not looking into doing any sort of rescue.
Most of these things are evolving to unisex washrooms anyway,
Right.
so.
That's kind of what
no,
I was
think
thinking,
that's,
if we could knock that one down.
Okay.
The other thing I had a question on was the actual intake room. It doesn't necessarily need to be like a room per se. I was
Well-
thinking like when the dogs come in, a separate entrance versus the one that.
it appeared to me that
Mm-hmm.
you don't have any way to get out of the weather to take a dog out of a truck.
Right,
And that there's a little bit of risk there.
yeah,
A little
Okay.
manhandling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we need a larger door, or like we've got
Right.
detailed situation, another garage door.
okay,
I just wanted to consider
makes
that.
sense, yeah,
Let me, before I lose,
yeah. Yeah, we don't necessarily need anywhere for like a vehicle to go in, just a wide entrance.
We need a wide entrance
Wider.
door in the event we have bad dogs that we can't
Exactly.
handle.
right,
Then we take chains and move the whole crate through.
Okay.
Before, we had to take a door off the hinges to get a crate into a kennel for our own safety.
how big is the
So
crate?
like, the crates are usually, I would at least want a 36,
Yeah.
38 entry door so I can get
So
my
if
crates
we had
in.
a 48-inch door,
Yeah.
a 42 or 48-inch door?
That'd be fine.
Yeah, 42 would be great.
But per se, that size door, it's kind of hard to get the crates through when we've got something that's
Can I just,
unhandleable.
can we just start at the top
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
just go down it real quick?
Mm-hmm.
The bathing and grooming does not have to be a room per se.
No.
It can be adjacent to a work area or the kennel area or whatever, right?
Correct.
The intake room doesn't necessarily have to be a room per se.
Right.
Is there any sense to having the medical space and the intake space and isolation, can those be combined? Probably not.
Isolation, I would say, needs to be away.
Yeah.
That has to be a quiet
Mm-hmm.
room that doesn't affect the others. That would include circulation.
I would say-
It can't circulate sick animal air into
Right,
healthy air.
right. So if you had the intake area, I previously have it here where the isolation kennels would be. Cause 9 times out of 10, they're gonna have to be isolated before they can be out.
So intake
into-
and isolation need to be adjacent to each other or some
I would say,
close
yes,
proximity?
yes.
Now, the isolation kennels, I had 4
Mm-hmm.
6x6 kennels.
6x6 would be about a large kennel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
So
could,
that
we
one's-
could do,
Could be 4 by 6.
yeah, I was gonna say, you could do 4x6 would be for large animals still, and they'll have enough room to stand and walk around.
And then we got the stacker cages, they're nice.
Okay, did I write that down wrong then? I had 6x6s.
You
but
didn't,
if-
I had 6x6, but,
Okay,
and we could even do 2 6x6
a
and
6x6, is there any advantage from one over the other in the isolation? They're not in there for that long, are they?
The most amount of time they would be 7 days.
7 days.
So that's not the end of the
They
world.
need
then.
enough room to be able to stand all the way, turn,
Yeah.
stretch in any direction, and have room to do their business.
So you think
And
that
not be
could
too
shrink down
close.
to a 4x6?
4 by 6 would work.
4x6s?
We can do 2 6x6 and 2 4x6s.
There you go.
That way you can have a little bit smaller spaces for the smaller dogs.
Do you think, do you prefer built-in kennels or these modular kennels that are up off the ground?
I've been told through a lot of different kennel experience, people that the really aggressive dogs are able to really mangle some of the metal. We have block dividers before, block wall dividers.
They were halfway up.
That
And yeah,
probably
they
keeps
were
them
probably
from-
3/4.
That
keeps us,
probably keeps them from
jumping,
aggravating.
interacting.
Quieter too.
Right.
It takes the anxiety way down
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
if they're not looking at each other.
Right, and those were, they could be halfway up.
Well, from a cleanability standpoint, that probably you end up,
6 foot's pretty much non-jumpable in
Yeah.
most cases.
the dog kennels,
I've seen it.
I have 8.
6 foot's not enough for some.
Most cases, that's what she said.
When they learn to bounce off one wall to get to, yeah, I've seen it, but that could be handled there.
That's what I
It's
was saying,
just the
most
immediate
cases.
area. That would be a
For the
good
dog
separation.
kennels, I've got
Yeah.
8 6x6s. That's okay.
Again, we could do, what?
Why so big?
Well, that's what I was just gonna say, we could do smaller ones, we just have to have a couple of bigger ones for those larger
One
dogs.
thing you have to remember about dogs, they like a smaller space. They're more comfortable that way.
Right,
They're an animal that like, you know, if you go back to their history, they used to dig a hole in the ground and make a den.
What-
And that's where they're happy. They're content that way.
What's the statute?
but
We're not-
the problem is they have to have enough room to be able to stand, to be able to turn, to be able to stretch, and to be able to do their business, because they're not gonna be exercised, I mean, we have to do it 3 times a day. So the majority of their time is gonna be spent in these kennels.
And they'll be happy there. Believe me.
What about a small, medium, and large?
That's what I was saying, we could do, as long as we had a larger one for like the mastiffs and things like
Yeah.
that.
I
Great
think that's
theory.
legitimate, it's just that it makes it a little bit trickier when you're laying these things out, and have any continuity and cleanability and all of that stuff. Let's say the 6x6s are a max size, and if we have an opportunity to put 2 or 3 or 4 smaller 4x6s in there,
Yeah, they don't have to be huge, I just want them to be
well, and smaller dogs.
just standard,
just like
and
John said,
smaller
small
dogs
would
don't
be
need
more
as much
comfortable,
room,
yeah.
correct?
The cat run, can you explain exactly what that is? I have my feeling for what it is, but is that that's probably literally a room?
That's, we don't necessarily need a cat run room, we need the isolation room and then the cat room itself.
Okay.
So that can be deleted out, correct?
Right, their cages just have to be big enough that they're not sitting in their litter box and they barely get room to get it, you know,
Now,
they just need to move a little.
can all of the cat facilities be double decked?
Oh, sure,
Can you triple deck?
sure.
Okay,
Yep.
so I will scratch out the cat run.
We've got stainless boxes and
Right. Okay.
the walls separate the cats.
I'll just put 3
And
tier
fence.
in here and just see how that, the cat room, can you explain how that would work?
So it's similar to the cat isolation room, just, it would have
That's
to
more
be,
of the long term.
right, and it would have to be bigger.
He's all right. He's just wandering in there.
You okay, Alex? Come here, baby.
This is why we need a
Is
building.
that what you get, 6x6 room?
Did you send out a text, bring in the dogs?
No.
He was fine, he went to the bathroom.
He didn't hurt, oh, thank you, he's really good.
No, Kurt was
I'm walking him
babysitting.
around the office.
Thank you.
Cat room
We
is
heard him
essentially the
barking.
longer term.
Right, it's a longer term room. The reason we have to have a cat isolation room is now by state law, they have to be vaccinated. So if there's any sort of cat bites, we have to monitor those for rabies, as well as if we have expecting mother cats, they have to be in the isolation room. But the cat room itself, basically, that would be their long-term kennel room, and they can be triple stacked as well.
Can you, how about if we
I know
call
you're
that the cat kennel, is that?
That would be
correct?
fine, yes.
So what are we calling the cat? The cat room is now the cat kennel,
Well,
is
the
that?
cat room, the cat run, we're taking out.
Right,
And the cat room will be the cat kennels, yes, which would be fine.
okay.
Now, the office area,
They can be in closer vicinity to each other than the dogs.
the office area, I may have bumped that up a little bit, I forget exactly what you had on there, but a 9x12 generally works out for office furniture.
Yeah,
That's essentially, it gives you enough room for a 4-drawer high or 5-drawer high file cabinet, maybe a 2-drawer under the desk. Gives you enough room to have 2 guest chairs and a
right,
primary
it
chair.
doesn't need to be a large area.
That's-
It's not
that's
small.
in the 9x12.
Fancy or spectacular on that
Right.
part at all,
Just-
no.
There's
Just
even
do
room
their
for
paperwork
copier and
and-
stuff like that, in a small copier. The animal food storage,
Can we combine that with 10? Storage?
that's exactly what I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious about. I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that you have, and I'm sure that's what the storage room is for.
Oh, yeah, like crates.
Yeah, we have the
and
crates, the
blankets
traps,
and
dog
leashes.
blankets, things like that. The only thing is the food storage would have to be, maintained separately. But that could also be, if you wanted to put the food storage in with the office, that would be fine as well, because they both have to be.
Why, are you saying the food storage cannot go into the general storage area?
No, it has to be separate,
Really?
or separate, because we have to make sure that, for health reasons, there's nothing that can get into it,
Cross-contaminated.
cross-contamination.
Cleaning product.
Right, and then the actual food storage room can also hold your non-vet prescribed medications.
And the 8x10 works out to have aisles or racks on either side, or storage on either side, so that's a good size for that. The storage room, you're probably in the right ballpark with a 10x10.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured, because so with
It
some of our,
might change ever so slightly depending on how
and
things
that's
lay out.
fine, but just kind of keeping in mind some of the larger crates that we have and the different sized, traps that we have, they keep their leads, their catch poles,
There's a lot of
blankets,
stuff.
there's a lot of stuff.
You've got cleaning.
Now, we have to have a
equipment.
freezer for our bodies as well.
Okay.
But that's just
Yeah,
a
it
chest
does-
freezer.
yeah,
It's
it can
Now,
just
would
be
that
a-
freezer go in the storage room?
gotta be big enough to fit something this size. This is about as big as we bring in other than Pyrenees.
So up to 100.
What
Yeah.
time is John?
Well, I mean,
What?
I
we
mean,
have to
it's-
put bodies on these
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
bags.
No,
we have
You
to,
cannot
yeah.
have
Do you need I'm assuming you don't need a cooler, but a freezer would work.
Just a freezer.
Just a
would be
freezer.
fine.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, if anything down the
refrigerate
road, if they
freezer.
do get a vet to take over the administrative part, they can get a counter cooler for medication, so.
The medical room, I think that size is roughly, probably correct.
In talking to one vet, that's a good size.
Okay. I'm assuming a table in the middle and counter and some overhead storage off to one
will
end.
there be a little sink in that room like
There
at the
would have
vet's
to be.
There would have
office?
to be,
Yeah,
Little hand sink?
Because-
They said it wasn't essential, but it would be very nice.
yes, cause, you know, if we can't get a vet per se in the administrative position, I'm okay keeping it on as, you know, for now. But we do have somebody that would be able, or would be willing to come on over and do some work or see the animals at that facility. So that would be, you know, thinking in the future of medical room would be.
Would that be like a
Completely
30-inch by 60-inch table? Or do you need something that's 6 feet?
Big enough for a dog to stretch out on.
yeah.
That's probably, that guy's probably a 6-footer.
Yeah, I was gonna say you probably need
Yeah.
a 6 foot.
Okay. Laundry and cleaning supplies, I think that's correct size. Lobby and waiting room, that was a little bit small in my mind.
We don't need a huge area, cause we're not gonna be completely open to the public at all times. It's basically for people to come in and relinquish their animals or to
Pay to
redeem
pick
their
them up.
animals, pay to pick up.
So 3 people,
Yeah,
and it's in and out to pay fines and things
Mhm.
like that.
And keep them out of Joe's office.
I like them. We're gonna move out to the new kennel. We're moving out to the new building.
Okay, we gotta make the building bigger now.
No, we're fine, we're fine. We work together well.
So you've got a mechanical room, an electric, water heater, you've got a backflow preventer in there.
Yeah.
You've got HVAC, security and alarms, fire alarm.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that space will get eaten up pretty fast.
Yeah.
And with a single, the plumbing code is changing. And I can't remember if we're supposed to put in a single washroom, handicap washroom like that, if we can still put a urinal in there. Would you-
It's not necessary.
No,
It's not
I
necessary?
just built the building and I plumbed the one room for the urinal, and the plumbing inspector said, you don't even need a
Well,
urinal.
that's the part that I was talking about, that they are changing that. It used to be that in some situations, and I can't remember, I haven't done any code review on this yet, but, so it is not important to have a urinal in that washroom?
No.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I have, for each one of these spaces, I'll rough this out.
Okay,
That's all of the things that go into each of those spaces.
mm-hmm,
I'll rough one out,
okay,
I'll electronically give it back to you,
sure,
and you should be able to change any
okay,
of the things.
okay, sounds good.
And at least you and I can pass it back and forth
Yep.
a time or two.
Yeah, that
that
would be
way-
fantastic.
You can have a summary of
If you need some-
everything, and it gets, this is what, I didn't bring more than one copy of that,
That's
but I've got
I
that
get
as
what
an
you're
electronic
Mhm.
fillable form, so.
On average, how many dogs and cats do we have?
Cats are relatively new.
Yeah.
We've only had to keep them, this is our second year, but roughly 10 to 15 is what I've researched.
Yeah.
For animal control purposes, because we're not
Total or
adopting.
average?
Yes, for the average, 10 to 15. Dogs, just going back in Dr. Yusuf's records and some of the animal control paperwork that I was gifted,
Mm.
we've had roughly on average 8. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Is-
I mean,
is
we
it
have
designed-
4 right now that we're holding.
Is it designed, is your fee schedule designed to satisfy any of these costs? I'm assuming this is a net loss.
It will be, the fees, I mean, we'll be able to access more fees if we have somewhere to keep these animals. Right now, we're on a very strict, we're not picking up any animals that are not in emergency situations. So our redemption fees are down quite a bit, but as far as the animal control officers, their fees and mileage, are basically paid with the registration fees that we bring in.
So the out-of-pocket gets covered, but you wouldn't
Anything
be able to cover-
spectacular additional,
We are looking at an application for ARPA funds this way, right?
right, and that would be the reason that we are able to do something like this, if not. we would be
Otherwise,
in-
it wouldn't even, it'd be very difficult.
Yeah,
for
and I
the-
mean, this has been going on since Yusuf left in, July, so we're begging and borrowing right now to place animals and use services outside of the county.
Well, that kind of gets me to my next question. We're probably looking at $400,000 or $500,000 now between the two buildings.
That's kind of what I figured I was gonna look
Well,
for.
the other thing to keep in mind is, and I don't, again, the payback might be slow, but we were paying Dr. Yusuf $1,500 a month just for his facility.
Mhm.
And everything that, his other services, medical services that he provided, were over and above, billed
Right.
separately. And when he had to submit the bats to the U of I for testing and different, that was all additional.
Mhm.
So that's a huge chunk of change, there's no denying that. But in my opinion, since I've been on this board, animal control has gone out of sight. But on the other hand, I mean, I'm going clear back
From
to
what
Dr.
perspective?
Dr. Fennell, was the vet who handled things, and the county simply just, if animal control was taken care of, Dr. Fennell was the vet. If we were doing a zoning issue for a new kennel, Dr. Fennell was at the zoning meeting, he had the USDA book, he read to us this, and this. He was making the trips to make sure that the intentions of the applicant were honorable, looking at the facility, and this is now all come on the county to do this, because we cannot get a veterinary to serve. There aren't a lot of vets around, and a lot of them are small animal vets, which I
And they
guess
got
is
their
what we're.
practice.
Yeah, right, And additionally, compounding the problem, and I'm pretty sure you're aware of this as everyone, in my opinion, I'll just say on camera for God and everybody, the world has gone dog nuts.
Yeah.
You know, they have. And so it's an increasing problem, in my opinion, probably for every county, you know. So this would sort
And
of
more
help.
people that don't take care of them properly.
Right, right.
More
Everybody,
uneducated about
you
it.
know, everybody's gonna get a pit bull, and then we just had that one from Milford we talked about, or was in the minutes today. And, I'm guessing that those were pit bulls because they went to It's a Pity, which is a
Yeah, We
rescue.
get a lot of, we have 2 right now.
Yeah, so that's the
We
situation.
have 2 right now, 2 shepherd mixes, so we get a lot of, I would say, medium to large size dogs.
Right, and then everybody thinks they should, you know, breed their dogs.
Mhm.
Well, from this helps me a lot.
Good,
What, I'll come up with a space plan like I did for
uh-huh,
Bill's space,
okay,
and then we can start, there'll probably be 2 or 3 of those.
okay,
I'll do something quick, down and dirty,
sure,
just to see how the adjacencies and all of that stuff work. Then tear it apart, we'll correct it, like I said, it'd take probably 2 or 3 passes, and then we can start evaluating how you wanna proceed from there.
okay.
Could we talk about, a little bit about what kind of building are we even thinking about? Materials. What's this committee thinking? Are we thinking block building? I know our leader wants, he's fine with the pole barn. How's that work for Bill's application? I don't know. I think John thinks we're making this too difficult.
I know he does. Pole barns are fine, I don't wanna call it pole barn,
Okay,
post frame.
post frame, okay.
They're fine for certain applications. For smaller applications like this, when you get in the 2,000 to 3,000 square feet, they're not necessarily always cost effective, especially if you've got unique things that have to go in there. We can generally have things panelized off-site, and that, one, it saves the construction time erecting it and getting it closed in. And 2, in a panelized situation, the walls are usually more amenable to putting mechanicals in, as opposed to post frame.
So when you said panelized, I'm thinking prefab,
The
pre-cut?
pre-cut, they're actually panels that are fabricated inside a shop. The quality control is better, the tightness and everything else is a little bit better. Some of these newer systems, they're actually pretty big panels. And they come on and we lift them up, and you can have things closed in 2 to 3 days.
So these are wood, like 2x4s, 2x6s.
2 by 6s.
Yeah.
If we have to do something that is more acoustical, then it might be two 2x4s.
Mhm.
If we're dividing the two. There's some foam products out there, foam walls, they're concrete inside the foam.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Well, but they make
Why not?
a terrific
Yeah,
sound wall.
yeah.
There's hardly anything that's.
You just think that's overkill for our purposes, John?
Yeah, I don't know, I'm kind of with John, sure, I think the whole thing's kind of a little overkill, but I know there are certain regulations. I was, you know, you look at this footprint with 20, was it 30 by 36? You know, I was thinking maybe we could do that same sort of 30 by 36 here, but the square footage isn't close yet.
No,
So,
that's why I wanted to go down the list to make sure I was understanding everything
yeah,
correctly. And I think we've taken some square footage out of it.
yes.
Yes, and to give you an idea, this is kind of what I had in mind
Sure.
for the kennels.
Sure.
And I know John's thinking, I call them crits.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't keep them in crates 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
You can't. Yeah, I understand they have enough room to stand up and turn around in the crate, but for 24 hours, it's not, the
But
dog's
this
not
is-
gonna just lay there.
This
Well,
is
they
much
go
more-
kennel crazy.
Yeah.
Well, this is much more
You
cleanable
confine
too.
them, they get kennel
So
crazy.
that's kind of
and
what
then
I
we
had
can't
an
do
idea.
anything with them.
And those are about the size dogs that probably get the majority of, but we
And
can
those are
do,
4-inch masonry walls,
right.
so that goes up fast.
Mhm.
And before you discount the foam block with concrete, when we built our building, that's what we used, and cost effective. I mean, you have a concrete wall that's gonna be structurally sound, plus you already have the insulation,
You've got an R50 in that wall,
yes.
where you've got an R20
Mhm.
in a stud wall, or
And
25.
And they're made so that you can fasten whatever on the inside, because they have plastic studs that you just screw to, so inside and outside, you're ready to fasten something to it.
And the overall overhead is dramatically reduced. Did you put a heated floor in your,
We did, but Nicor hasn't run gas to it yet.
Okay.
So
but,
up through December, we were heating a 56 by 108 building with 13-foot walls and open ceiling with a 3-ton heat pump.
I did a little 1,000 square foot mechanical building that has no heat in wintertime. We're heating that whole thing with 1,500 watts. I've done 3 or 4 fire stations, Durales, shop, all of those run a third of what the other four-stair systems run. So,
I-
those things, because those overhead numbers keep on coming, and so it's important to keep those down initially.
And as an overhead number, when we were paying Dr. Youssef $1,500 a month, that computes to $18,000 annually. And I know that this is very, very rough figuring, but if we are looking at a $400,000 project and you divide that by 18,000 without interest and other factors in there, that works out to a 22-year payback, very roughly. So I think a 20-year mortgage is sort of a reasonable thing, you know.
I just didn't know anything about the numbers.
And just let me say, we don't thank you enough, because getting this, I liked your word scope. I don't think this county board has built a building since I came here in 2006. We haven't built a building. So, you know,
I don't think it's been since the 60s when Silver Deer was built.
And then probably the courthouse and jail.
These are tough things.
Yeah.
And it takes discussion.
And if we're gonna spend that kind of money, here's what I wanna do, folks. I wanna do it right. It doesn't have to be fancy.
No.
It doesn't have to be state of the art. Let's just get the job done right.
And we're better off building it 10% bigger than we think, so we can expand it.
Because the
Or
whole
at
world has
least
gone
10.
dog nuts.
Yeah.
So there are runs on top of this too, outside dog runs, are they?
What we've done in the past is put a chain link fence outside, but then we put another fence around that, a vinyl fence or something, just to keep them from getting each other excited.
Yeah.
And when they see something moving, they get anxious. So,
Yeah, that's probably another thing. I had a conversation with John yesterday. He's not here to speak for himself. Paul was involved, and we were talking about, you know, wow, when we get a professional involved, we find out this corner saves us $20,000 because of utilities. John still wants it attached to the maintenance building over there.
We're not gonna do that, because I did ask the sheriff, and he would rather not.
Well, and I have it stuck in my head, sometime during floods, there is water over there. John said, no, there's not. I don't know where he's talking about sticking it, but I distinctly remember water
My,
over there.
my thought process, let's wrestle with the adjacencies, let's wrestle with these combined pieces, see what size that is, what kind of a shape it is, and then start looking at the best place. I don't know that we need to focus on
Okay.
one spot or another right now. I would look at 2 or 3.
That's mine.
And I'm just gonna make, as being on the ARPA, and you all heard the minutes today, and Jill's working very, you know, she's up to her eyeballs in the ARPA projects too. I don't wanna see this project linger. It's already lingered. So let's get
Yeah, we
moving.
have a very hard time finding places to put animals right
I
now.
meant to ask
It's
what,
been a benefit that I've hired Mr. Williams because of his kennel license. he's been wanting some animal for us, but.
What-
And Amanda's not taking another dog.
Would be dangerous to let Amanda have another dog. Next thing you know, we're gonna have a hoarding situation at her
And
house.
bring them to the county board meetings.
You
Yeah.
know, and-
What is your timeline?
Well, we have the $2.2 million, of which we spent 530 already, and then we have that money
Isn't it
in
funny how it
hand.
goes out one hell of a bunch faster than it
Then
comes
it
back?
comes- I know.
I had originally had 250 in mind for just the animal control building. Now that we've added on the morgue, I was thinking around 450, but, you know, if we could get something done this year, but I also am realistic and I know that,
Well, I think you can.
I wanna move faster than that.
well, I'm just thinking building prices and materials and how hard that stuff's been able to
Availability
get.
would be our probably limiting factor.
Good point, good point.
Right now, things are surprisingly not too bad.
Yeah.
Are the windows getting better, windows and doors?
No,
Okay.
doors are fine.
Oh, windows are bad?
Getting them in.
I got 70-year-old windows.
But I don't know that we have that many windows in here.
No.
And these can be fiberglass or something like
Exactly,
that.
just some light.
They could be aluminum. Those are not bad at all. I can have those in a few days. Overhead doors, they're nuts.
Mhm.
I don't know what the problem is with that. I've heard, but
Yeah, I was talking to the electrician yesterday, he can't hardly get breakers anymore.
No.
You know,
But yet, we needed a 600 amp disconnect for a project in Champaign, and they told us originally it was gonna take 8 weeks. So we went ahead and bought it early
Yeah.
to make sure we would have it. It came in 4 or 5 days
Yeah,
with everything that we needed.
yeah.
And it ended up being cheaper than what we needed. But yet, there are other things that are like 100% more.
Yeah.
So,
No, right.
some plumbing stuff is crazy.
Yeah.
Uh,
PVC pipe gets to be
It is, it's,
allocated.
yeah, it's way nuts. So my goal would be to hurry up and get this studied, get our arms around it in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Get it essentially roughly approved. If you want to go ahead and do a set of drawings for it, we can get that out. That's another 30-day window to get it prepared, get it out on the street for pricing, for hard pricing. Then you can
Let her out for bid.
let it out.
So we're talking about, well, no, you explain, never mind.
Well, I would be
I was gonna
inclined to
say
try
a
and get it in.
custom building, but it's not really, it is, but it isn't.
It is, right. But the goal would be to try and get it in the ground before weather
Yeah.
turns to crap again in the fall.
Yeah. And while we still have some ARPA money.
So do we wanna meet again in 2 weeks or so, or before?
That would work for me. That would give Jill and I a chance to pass that other thing around a bit.
When would that be?
Wait a minute,
Well,
we're,
You can let us know, right?
no, we're up to, we got a whole
Well-
bunch of people going on vacations.
Yeah.
And
2 weeks would be the 22nd roughly.
the next management meeting would be the 7th of March.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, that would
keep
work
it
too, the
moving.
7th would
All
work.
right, sounds
And
good.
that is really what, how many weeks?
Management
3.
committee,
Yeah.
February
That's
28th.
Oh, I'm not gonna be at that meeting, that's
Oh, is that
right.
right?
I'm supposed to, yeah, you're right. God.
Wow, you're right, because it is the 8th is
Yeah.
the board meeting.
You guys can go ahead and carry on without me, just
I'm-
to keep the project moving.
I'm guessing that we probably need to move that meeting.
The 28th.
I won't be. Well, let's see. When is,
The 28th
Oh,
is our regular
you know
scheduled
what?
meeting.
Paul won't
I'll
be
be
here,
Paul
back.
won't be here either.
and I won't be here, so there'll be 4
So
people.
that'll be-
Paul
I
and
may
Jen.
actually be back the day before, so.
Well, if you're gonna move it, we could all be here.
Are you here Wednesday?
Wednesday,
Second.
the.
If you're wondering, I'm here all week.
You'll be appearing all,
Wednesday'd be the
you'll be
24th.
appearing all week.
I usually am.
If we would,
No,
No, it would
Unless I
be
end up
the
March
Wednesday
2nd.
after.
Or
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
March 2nd.
if you wanted to do it before
Even then, I'm
judicial,
busy.
I seem to have, there's a bell going off that there's something going on, but I think so, like Wednesday the 2nd at 1 o'clock.
That's what we usually do.
Yeah, that's what we usually do on Wednesdays with the
I'll
judicial.
try really hard to do that.
Well, maybe we'll send out an email
Will
to
that work
everybody
for-
on the committee and see if that works for
Will
everybody.
that work for you, Mr. Mahoney, is we're looking at the second at 1 o'clock?
Sure.
Okay.
And Paul goes to judicial, so if he's gonna be at judicial, that should work for him. You're on judicial. But you can be there. You're not,
I'm not
Today's
going
my
to.
silver wedding anniversary.
I know,
You
you
know,
know.
right?
You might have the
happy
anniversary.
anniversary.
So do you want me to go and cancel the February 28th meeting then?
And move it to the first,
Yeah.
or the second at 1 o'clock.
'Cause otherwise, we may not have a quorum.
That's true. You should just give me voting rights.
Well, in fact, that's what happened in Highway yesterday
Yeah,
with
there
the
you go.
bid letting on February 22nd. 3 of us said, but we don't need
Yeah.
to vote on anything that
Yeah.
day.
So dog jail,
You just have to
March
repeat
2nd,
yourself on
1 o'clock.
Well, that'll be the whole management.
How about
So
if I
February
try to
28th
get
is,
you-
March 2nd,
This
right?
might be pushing it for me because I'm up to my eyeballs.
I'm
Yeah,
here
so
the third,
understandable.
too.
I would like to get you some kind of a rough space plan so that you can critique it,
Mhm.
so that we don't waste everybody's time
Sure,
in a situation like this.
that would be
If
cool.
we can get something somewhat refined,
Mhm.
and then let you guys critique it.
And,
Yeah.
and again, you know, let us
That
be
would be fine.
respectful because
I will make time.
Mr. Mahoney's being very generous to
Exactly,
us.
that's what I said, I will make time.
Just as a layout, Linda, maybe, and this is just,
I
it's not
provided one in
everything,
the packet.
but, with the morgue here, and this would be an area where they could actually bring a vehicle in and use that as storage for kennels and stuff, mechanical room. Gives access to your food room right here, and a hallway here adds this more soundproofing towards the morgue.
I actually have a drawing with something like this already.
Okay.
It just wasn't in the original
Right.
prospectus, and I would love to see you do something like that.
We're open.
One, it's safer.
We are more than open.
I wanted to make sure,
Did you say that meeting time is good for you or not?
Yes, 1 o'clock.
March 2nd.
March 2nd, 1 o'clock.
Yep.
Wednesdays are tough days for me, especially in the afternoon. I have a
Okay.
a
Standing
weekly meeting,
appointment.
standing meeting, and it's really hard to adjust that, but Tuesdays and Thursdays are usually very, very good for me.
Let's remember that, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So, should we move this to a Tuesday or a Thursday? I can't come on the Tuesday, but I think I'm flying on that day. Tuesday? I mean, or should I just stop talking?
Yeah, I know. Does Thursday mess up?
Thursday's just finance, Friday is highway and ARPA.
You know,
We're not
do
doing
our
it
day.
on
On
Friday.
Friday. 'Cause Friday is full.
If you were gonna move it Thursday, would be better.
Yeah, because it's just finance.
Okay. When is finance?
9.
It'll be over by 10.
So we can do it
Get
10
scheduled for
o'clock
10.
on Thursday?
Will that work better for everybody?
No, but that's okay.
Okay, the 3rd at 10, and that's better for Mr. Mahoney. Let us be considerate of that.
It's
Oh, no,
probably,
I have no problem with Tuesday.
well,
But you
Donna
do-
wouldn't
but
have been
you
here
do.
Wednesday, well, no, at least the Wednesday is what we were gonna do. But what, the issue I could see there is if discussions on this went long, then we'd run into judicial.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Okay.
March 3rd at 10 a.m.
Change that, Paul, you
I
got
got
it?
it.
Okay.
It's my birthday.
It's my sister's birthday. And I think there's something at home on my calendar, but I don't know, it might be
It's
booked.
Paul's birthday.
It's Paul's
I expect
birthday.
a cake.
I was gonna say, we usually always have cake or something in that office
Okay.
with Lacey in there.
Oh, yeah.
Is she gonna be around?
Oh, did we have a
No.
baby?
We did.
We had a baby yesterday at 4:15.
Oh, yeah, good for her.
She hasn't
One
sent
last
the
question, are
details
you
yet, but
related to, I
everybody's
have a
healthy.
good friend in
What-
Shasta,
what
Louis
girl?
Mahoney.
Everybody's having girls here.
Just so happens that gentleman is a cousin.
Really?
Yep.
I'll be
Yep.
back. good guy. I was almost raised with him as a kid up there.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
I didn't hear the baby news.
Okay,
What was the baby? A little girl?
can we do that, can we do that after the meeting?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
we're,
yeah.
yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay,
Sorry.
Okay,
I forgot too.
so, the
We
next
don't care about it.
management meeting then will be March
Third,
Third,
3rd, okay.
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Here,
Yes.
Any other things we need to answer before we adjourn? You've got enough,
I think so.
okay,
And you have my information, just,
Right.
yeah, email.
okay. And
Did that help everybody?
It
Yeah.
was
Oh, tremendously.
tremendous.
Thank you.
Feel
And
better
many,
about it.
many, many thanks.
There's hope.
Yes, thank you very much.
I have hope.
So in general, you think the 400, 450 is something doable?
We'd really like it at 350.
I guess it depends on how much work the
Yeah, I mean, I would
county
like
board
to
can do.
stay, under the 450 mark if we could.
More in the 400 mark.
350, I
Lot of things.
can't see that happening.
No, not for the two buildings.
But I think that 450, I think is probably somewhere in the ballpark.
More forward.
More realistic.
Okay.
Now, just talking out loud, I'm envisioning the animal control facility to be as open as we possibly can. No finished ceilings. If it's got a raw ceiling, so
Who cares?
what?
Yeah,
Who
that's
cares?
fine.
Right.
If we're
I don't need a
heating,
ceiling.
cooling with forced air, it'd be spiral duct. It'd be
Right.
an industrial look.
Right, which is just fine.
And try to isolate, the highest priority there would be to, one, try to isolate noise.
Yeah.
For the people working, and then have the adjacencies so that they've got access to keeping everything clean.
And when we talk about energy efficiency,
Clean,
then we
quiet.
talk about more dollars, and I'm thinking you talked about a split thingy, which I know we put in the church basement, and, that won't work in this because we have to have circulation.
We'll keep talking about that. Mini splits, I'm in favor of them, they do a great job. But I'd like to understand a little tiny bit better about your parameters for temperature in there. In the original prospectus, you had it fairly low, probably lower than what I would have been inclined to design for. So I need to weigh that and balance that out.
Okay.
But I'm probably on the same page as you, Lyle, in terms of energy efficiency. I've become psychotic about saving energy. Because one, it's one of those expenses that just kind of gets away from you. And the more you can keep your overhead down, the better off you're gonna be.
Right.
With an open ceiling like that, what would you recommend for the insulation on the roof?
We've generally been, we started out, the code says R38. We've had, for an economical solution, we've had the best luck with blown-in cellulose. We've been trying to migrate up a little bit more even with that
Okay.
temperature up there.
So,
But in your situation, if you don't need like a 70+ degree working environment, that might be a little bit of overkill.
I guess since that's gonna be an open ceiling, will that stick and stay in the
I would
moisture?
probably put some kind of ventilation, air movement up there, and you need some fresh air, quite a bit of fresh air, so I would somehow get that worked into that air
What is the
movement.
recommended temperature?
Well, anything below
65.
30 outside is the cold wise.
It's gonna have to be comfortable for not only employees, the employees and visitors is probably more of a concern than the dogs. The dogs can handle as long as it's not too hot.
Like 65-ish?
65, as I was thinking.
That was a number I was pulling out of my
Yeah.
head.
That's the temp I got my dog shut at right now,
Okay.
outside.
What about summer?
Has to be cool.
It has to be cool. Concrete keeps things a lot cooler than most surfaces. But
But
yeah,
that one would be probably about,
And then
what,
you-
74, 75? It doesn't have to be extremely cool.
not extremely cold, just comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I'm not an air bug and, no, we don't need to freeze them, they just need to be comfortable. Not,
It's the humidity, it's a bigger problem.
Right, it's the humidity,
Right.
So,
And that's where the little heat pumps and mini
Mhm.
splits, those work terrific at pulling humidity out of the air. But it takes a tighter environment, but you've got doggy doors, so it's hard to keep anything really tight.
you know, doggy doors would be nice, I don't know that we're going in that direction still.
I,
Just an exit door to walk them out and cut them
Oh,
loose to
okay.
get in the play.
Well,
Yeah,
then you've
that
got a
would-
tight building.
yeah,
Okay.
that would
That's
be,
fine.
that would be,
Okay.
I was, of course, that would be
That would be ideal to
fantastic,
have
but
them,
it's also
You just
more
cut 'em
cost
out.
effective.
less staff work right there.
How many people would be in there on a regular basis?
We have, one full-time, which is Linda, and then we have 2 part-time officers. And then my office is over here, but, so I would say there wouldn't be more than 3 at a time.
Okay.
Mm.
3, 4 at a time, under 5,
Yeah.
for sure.
that's including visitors coming and going?
Right, I would say under 5 for sure still, because even if they were to come redeem a dog or relinquish a dog, it's usually 1 or 2 people.
Yeah, and you usually wanna get in and out and be done.
Oh, yeah, they wanna get away from us, they get their dog and
Yeah, they don't really like us too much.
go. They don't like to hang around and talk to us too much.
Well, nobody likes to take responsibility for,
They don't,
for their screw ups.
they
No,
don't.
they got their dog, they got their tickets, yeah, we're,
I'm out of here.
Mhm.
Well, if you don't need anything else,
they do talk, it's usually not.
I'll see you the 3rd.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you
care,
again.
everybody.
Many
We
thanks.
appreciate it.
Where are you going, John?
Man, is he gonna pull this one?
I like that.
You think you're sneaking out of here?
We haven't adjourned yet.
Okay, is there any old business? Is there any new business?
Move
Yeah.
to
I'll
adjourn.
motion to
Okay,
adjourn.
Second.
all in
Whatever.
favor?
That was a productive meeting. I think we got
Yeah.
some things figured